Russian military transport aircraft, Il-76, have begun flying actively in the Belarusian Machulishchy military airbase. The activity of Russian transport aviation has been recorded by analysts from AviVector, and 124/100 transport aircraft has also been involved in cargo transportation. The Machulishchy airbase is one of the few in Belarus capable of accommodating large military transport aircraft with heavy payloads. Since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, this airbase has become a base for Russian forces. The Russian Aerospace Forces have used the Machulishchy airfield as a temporary deployment site for A-50 long-range radar detection aircraft and MiG-31 fighters to carry out combat missions in the war against Ukraine. Analysts suggest that the current activity of Russian transport aviation with Il-76 aircraft may be related to preparations for Zapad 2025 joint exercises scheduled for September. It is noted that the scenario and scale of these exercises largely repeat those under the cover of which Russia amassed troops and equipment near the Ukrainian border in the winter of 2022, preparing for the invasion. In Minsk, they assure that the exercises pose no threat to neighboring countries and are solely aimed at preparing the military forces of both countries. This is an increase in the level of training of our servicemen, an increase in the level of interaction between the armed forces of Belarus and Russia, said Belarusian Defense Minister Viktor Krenin. We do this for ourselves and demonstrate that we are ready to defend ourselves and threaten no one. Valentin Nalyvaichenko, member of the Ukrainian parliament and former head of the Ukrainian security service, said that with the help of Lukashenko, Putin is once again trying to simulate that the Belarusian direction could supposedly reopen during military exercises. Regarding the joint military exercises between Russia and Belarus, once again, Putin is trying, with Lukashenko's help, to simulate that the Belarusian front could supposedly reopen this summer. So far, there is no confirmation of this from the Ukrainian General Staff. As far as I know, the regions of Ukraine bordering Belarus are prepared for such threats. I believe the deterrence effect there is quite strong, Nalyvaichenko noted. According to him, both Lukashenko and the Russians see and know that Ukraine is ready in these regions. There are mined areas and prepared fortifications, so they won't be able to just drive through as they did in February and March of 2022. All this means only one thing: don't panic, don't lose heart, but instead gather all possible resources in Ukraine and support the armed forces. Our General Staff knows exactly what is lacking in each area. Accordingly, that's what needs to be supplied, produced, and purchased using all available state resources, the former head of the Ukrainian Security Service emphasized. It is no exception that Ukraine will destroy Russian military aircraft and equipment, this time at the Belarusian Machulishchy airbase. In any case, it depends on the threat that will arise. The head of the Kremlin, Vladimir Putin, will continue to carry out terrorist strikes on Ukraine, so already in June 2025, the daily number of Shahed drones attacking our territory could increase to 600. In response, Kiev will strike enemy terrorist targets. The former head of the Foreign Intelligence Service of Ukraine, General of the Army Mykola Malamuz, spoke about this. He explained why it is important to convey Ukraine's position to the world. The military expert recalled that the Russians have already used more than 350 drones on May the 25th and 26th, and a record 479 attack drones and decoys on June the 9th to strike Ukraine. I assume that in the coming weeks there could be up to 600 drones of different types. Of course, there could be dozens of missiles of different types. They will be launched from aircraft with 40% because most of these strategic aircraft are not operational. Some of them are destroyed, damaged, and some cannot fly, says the Army General. According to him, Kiev must inform the world community about Russian acts of terrorism and remind them of the legality of Ukrainian retaliatory strikes against terrorist targets. Strikes against civilians are classified as terrorism under the laws of Britain, Europe, China, India, Brazil, Turkey, Ukraine, and Russia itself. Therefore, we prevent terror and the killing of people by conducting operations against these very objects of terror: aircraft, Iskander missile launchers, and Shahed drones, the production systems of these means of killing, and electronics for Shaheds, summed up Nikolai Malamuz. Recently, Kremlin forces fired almost 500 drones at Ukraine and more than a dozen missiles in a major attack, targeting cities across the country, according to Ukrainian authorities. Ukraine said its air defenses had shot down hundreds of drones and many missiles and claimed that injuries were minimal. Russia is escalating the war and has no intention of stopping it, said Andriy Yermak, top advisor to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Any escalation can only be stopped by force. Moscow's full-scale invasion of Ukraine began in February 2022 and has shown no signs of abating, even amid a staggering death toll. Glacially slow advances in the country's east and efforts by US President Donald Trump's team to bring an end to the conflict. Despite 2 rounds of talks between Russian and Ukrainian negotiators in Turkey in recent weeks, Putin's military has only ramped up its aerial bombardment, regularly firing record-setting numbers of drones at Ukraine.